let us move into some favorite quotes we have from the book.
I can go first, I guess.
Yeah, I was thinking we might sprinkle Elliot's in there. I think he wrote
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
12 in our
I do have
outline.
like 7.
All right, Elliot, go first with 2, and then I will go, and then we may come back to Elliot at
I'll
the
go.
end.
Yeah, I'll go somewhere in
I'll
there.
I'll start off with an Adolin quote, actually. There's a few Adolin quotes that could have been picked in this book. I totally related with Paul. You were talking about Adolin, right? A few minutes ago. He has some great moments, and he has a couple of different scenes where he like really pulls out this encouraging, supportive, like best friend Adolin. Like Adolin's the guy you just want with you at this point, because like when you're feeling down, Adolin's gonna notice and he's gonna say something about it. So it's like, man, what a good friend. Adolin says this, and he's talking to Shalon in kind of one of those moments where he's encouraging her. This is fairly early in the book, actually. This is probably part 2. No one ever accomplished anything by being content with who they were, Shalon, Adolin said. We accomplished great things by reaching toward who we could become. And I loved how relevant that became later when Shalon does face a scenario where she's kind of deciding, who do I want to become? And we get that great scene later.
That's one of my favorite quotes, so I'll go ahead and just jump in right there. One of my favorite quotes is this. Adolin is right, Vale said. He's always been right about you. Tell me, who is the strongest of mind? The woman whose emotions are always on her side, or the woman whose own thoughts betray her? You have fought this fight every day of your life, Shalon, and you are not weak. That quote is really does a decent job of summarizing that entire page, because there's a very intense back and forth between Shalon and Vale in that scene, and I love that part of the book where she's about to kill Kalak and Vale pulls her from the brink of becoming formless, and it's a really good moment for Shalon.
I feel like this book really explored the strength before weakness part of the oath, which before hadn't really been touched on as much. But I think that was the best quote of the book right there that you just read.
I'll throw it out there because what I think is the best quote of the book is different. I think that was an amazing quote. Easily one of the best of the book, but I have my personal favorite, which I'm going to go ahead and read. It's totally jarring, taking us to separate characters. This is from The Dog and the Dragon on page
the best chapter of the book,
920. Yeah. And I'm going to read an abbreviate like the quote, but I guess it deserves a little bit of context. It's at the end of Hoyt is telling Kaladin the story of the dog and the dragon, and Kaladin says, "Can you tell me the real ending?" And he wants to know what happens with the dog, and it says, "Wit stood and stepped over, then put his hand on Kaladin's back and leaned in. That night," he said, "the little dog snuggled into a warm bed beside the fire, hugged by the farmer's children, his belly full, and as he did, the dog thought to himself, 'I doubt any dragon ever had it so good anyway.'" He smiled and met Kaladin's eyes and goes on. But I thought whenever I read that for the first time, I instantly fell in love because it was such a good culmination to a story where it's the story within the story, but it gave such a good memo of this dog wants to be a dragon. It wants to be one of the most majestic, strongest, bravest creatures in existence. But realizing he's not a dragon, he realizes all the blessings that he has in his life of a warm home and people who love him and all the food he could have, and kind of the simple pleasures of life. And that little ending of I doubt any dragon had it so good anyways. Was just really sweet, and one of the reasons why my theme rating was a 10 out of 10. I thought that was just amazing, and I kind of get chills every time I read it. So, the like simple, sweet, loving message of that is what I love.
And that whole scene is made even better by the fact that Kaladin has no idea what a dog is
Yes. It's so good.
at all.
That's true. That is true. Yeah.
This is the story of the
I
dog
think
and the dragon. The
I
what and
also
the
think
what?
it's kind of ironic that most of our like biggest real world application like takeaways from these stories happen not from the book, but the books within the book.
Yes.
We have the In-World Way of Kings, which was pretty formative, and then we have the Dog and the Dragon, which was a story told by Hoyd. But, yeah, that was hands down my favorite quote of the book, and it's not even like in our normal narrative story, which is kind of ironic, I think.
I love that chapter. Keeping with the Kaladin storyline, I'll read a little bit, but honestly, as far as like favorite quotes from this book, I honestly would read you the entirety of chapter 110. Chapter 110 is called Reborn, and it's the moment where Kaladin emerges from that scene.
No. It's the moment where Kaladin emerges from the actual best chapter that is in the book, which is 108, titled Moments
Tien.
with Tien.
Yes. The Tien vision speaks his fourth ideal, saves his father, and in the midst of that, cut right in the middle of it, is Navani speaking her first ideal,
Yep.
bonding the sibling and becoming a bondsmith. The entire chapter is fantastic, not just for the events that happen in it, but just for the way it's written. This is one of the chapter I'd point to that says this is some of that descriptive imagery that I've been craving from Brandon, and he finally gives like an entire chapter of it. I'll just read the first couple sentences which give you a taste of it, but if you need a pick me up, just go pick up your Rhythm of War book and go read chapter 110 because it's just fantastic. A black storm, black wind, black rain. Then, piercing the blackness like a spear, a lance of light. Kaladin storm blessed, reborn. Kaladin exploded through the darkness, surrounded by 1,000 joyful windspread, swirling like a vortex. And the whole chapter just like goes on like that, of just like this epic description wording. It's fantastic.
You gave me chills.
Yeah. Chapters like that are what really impressed me with Brandon's writing, is how good and accurate the imagery. I can make a good picture in my head, but also it's like just really exciting. He's not just describing, he's using tools to like describe what's going on. So,
and the end of that chapter is the moment where his scars, his brands finally heal.
Yeah.
And still, every time I think about that scene, I think about it in a different way, like how huge that moment is.
Yep.
For Kaladin. Like 4 books worth of development, huge.
Absolutely.
For that kid.
He has finally forgiven himself for Tien's death. It is so good. One of my favorite Stormlight moments ever, probably top 5. We should do a video of that. Top 5 Stormlight quotes, Stormlight moments, whatever. One of my top 5 is a very simple line in Words of Radiance. Szeth has just landed on the Shattered Plains to kill Dalinar at the end of the book. Kaladin's not there yet. And Dalinar and Adolin comes over to defend Dalinar from Szeth. And Dalinar waves Adolin off and decides to take Szeth on one-on-one. And he forgives himself in that moment. He understands that even if he had been lucid on Gavilar's death, he still could not have beat Zeth, and he forgives himself of that burden that he's carried with him for. He set down that boulder that he'd carried with him for 7 years. That line. I love that line. It's so good. But the actual best chapter in this book is not 110. It is 108, and Tien's meeting with Kaladin. And I'm not going to read you the whole thing. I read you the whole thing when I don't know, a couple episodes ago, but the dialogue back and forth between Tien of, I should have been there for you, I should have saved you, and Tien saying, you are here for me, you're good enough for me. That I love that entire sequence, and it's really lengthy to read, but it's so good, all of it. The dialogue back and forth of how if you have, I'll just leave it at that. It's good.
A couple of honorable mentions for moments or quotes. Another tearjerker is Teft's death, but just the way he goes out saying to Moash, I have what you will never have. I die knowing I'm loved. Like, that one's seared in my brain. I didn't even have to look that one up. I just like that one's memorized, and I wasn't even trying. One more, I'll mention Dalinar has a great conversation with Kaladin about having the wisdom to realize when you need help.
Yeah.
And he basically says, well done, soldier, for knowing and being willing to admit that you needed help. I thought that encapsulated a lot of our story right there. And then my final one, last one, I promise. I know I had like 9. I did cross off a few that I'm not going to read. Last one, because I think this may have some big implications for our next book. The quote is, honor is not dead so long as he lives in the hearts of men.
If you sit and think about the implications of that line going into Stormlight 5, your brain can start exploding pretty quickly, because it is the way it is presented to the reader. It is obviously a preconceived idea of the honor sprint. Nodum is not making it up on the spot. This is a slogan, a chant of.
It's a philosophical debate.
Yes, between Spren that are loyal to the humans even after the Recreants, and Spren who are not. And if you start thinking about, is honor really dead, or does he live on in the hearts of men? That has really cool applications for myself. That has really cool applications for the book. There are several layers to that quote I love. All right.
That's it for quotes. I promise.
Now, let's talk about our Oathbringer predictions for Rhythm of War. How close were we? How far off were we? How is our... And then we'll lead into questions we still have, and questions we still have that were not answered, and then new questions we have going into Stormlight 5. So, I pulled this right from our Oathbringer outline from last year. I mean, obviously I'd read Rhythm of War at the time, but I put in a big prediction I had at the end of Oathbringer was that Dalinar was going to die in Rhythm of War. I thought the Contest of Champions would be shifted to, maybe Kaladin, maybe, whatever. I thought Dalinar would die. Wrong.
And not even close either, right? We talked about how Dalinar honestly didn't maybe do a whole lot in this book.
His page count is not high. I mean, he does end up dueling Yashar, who is full intentions of killing him. So, I mean, something might have happened.
That's like our Dalinar part of the book that we get to take note of.
The one chapter.
He found Ishar.
He did.
Cool.
And he did win the war. That's a pretty big statement, but it doesn't seem like a big statement in the book. They did win the battle in Tukar, or wherever, or wherever they were, and which pretty much set the lines of where the territories will be moving forward.
Well, and to defend my boy Big D, because he's my favorite, he does have a big part in this book. I mean, think about his interactions with Kaladin.
Yeah.
There's the part where he discharges him from the army. That's huge.
Yeah.
There's a part I talked about before where he kind of revisits Kaladin's storyline and acknowledges his wisdom in getting help. He convinces the Stormfather to freaking save Kaladin's life
To
and
do
allow him to
something.
speak the fourth ideal. I think more than once Dalinar saves Kaladin or gives Kaladin kind of the boost to get to where Kaladin does. So Dalinar is absolutely a pivotal part of this. It's just not really a development storyline for him. He doesn't really learn much, maybe.
You mentioned it, and I do want to circle back to it. The scene where Dalinar honorably discharges Kaladin from active service is one of those scenes where I would point to the strength of Brandon Sanderson's writing. I know I've harped on this scene before, but that scene is so compelling because you understand where both characters are coming from. The dialogue is so heart-wrenching and brutal, but you understand that it's the right thing to do for Dalinar, and you completely understand that Kaladin absolutely will not accept this. He needs to be forced to do this. There's a very good dynamic that he set up. It doesn't feel cheap, and it is such a good scene in my mind.
Agree.
All right, Paul, on your outline here, what was your prediction for Rhythm of War?
So I think the predictions that I had was that we will learn about the Dark Sphere, which I would say we did.
We did.
Yeah, we
lot.
learned about the Dark Sphere.
We got sat down and
was
showed
really-
a full PowerPoint and then a full book on it. Yes.
Yep, we did, and I'm grateful to. I'm really grateful to understand the Dark Sphere. Very exciting, and I predicted that we will have a major death. I had Kaladin or Renarin as potential big deaths. I'm actually gonna. We haven't talked about our future theories yet, but I'm gonna carry that Kaladin one over.
I would say you are
not this book,
correct.
but next book.
Obviously, it wasn't Kaladin or Renarin, but, and I'm not saying Teft either. I think it's Taravangian. Taravangian is your major death that we had in this book.
Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. I was like, Teft is a big death. Taravangian is also a big death, because
I guess if you're arguing that Taravangian's not dead, I would just say then Ray's is your major death.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. At least if you combine everyone who died, we have a major death, perhaps.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, because it's kind of complicated because Taravangian died, but he's Todium.
Correct.
At least apparently Zeth thinks he killed Taravangian. So, anyways, very interesting. And so that one, I think I actually kind of got. It wasn't like when I made that prediction, I was really thinking like the major protagonist, like an Aelin dying or something like that. But we were close to that. I give myself 75% credit.
All right, Elliot, your turn.
I had a couple predictions that were not like spot on. Oh my gosh, I got that perfectly right. But maybe we're kind of in the ballpark or touched on some things that did kind of happen in this book. The first one I said that I was actually really worried about was that we were going to get a seriously dark turn in the book, kind of that dark before the dawn sort of thing with book 5, hopefully the triumphant end of the first 5 series, this perhaps being the kind of lull or the low point before you ramp into that 5th book. We kind of got that. I was looking back over the themes that I wrote down for each of the parts of the book, and I was actually curious to see the progression of those. It started out very much in a low spot, actually. The first 2 parts I had obsolescence, or kind of that having to deal with change, as the first one, and then doubt as the second one. So once the tower kind of gets taken over, there's very much our heroes are really getting beaten down at this point once they take over the tower. But then it kind of slowly climbed its way back up as Navani starts to figure out where things are at, and Adolin has his pretty awesome storyline, and Kaladin eventually gets there in the end. It very much ended on a high note for me, which I think is not what I was predicting there. I thought it might end on a bit of a lower note, whereas I'm feeling, with perhaps the exception of the epilogue, a really positive kind of upswing coming out of this book. And so now I'm kind of terrified for what's next, because we just swung up like, oh dear, there's kind of only one way to go for here. But that is the epilogue, though, throws this like small, but at the same time, huge wrench in all of this, with the whole Taravangian has become odium, has a plan for taking over the world, thinks he has a loophole. Oh, and our one character who seemed to be our secret weapon just got his memories stolen by Taravangian odium. So maybe that's the dark turn that I somehow predicted, perhaps. My other one was about cultivation. I kind of, with not a lot to base it on, claimed that I thought cultivation may not turn out to be on our side. I don't know if we've necessarily proven that, but I'm definitely highly suspicious of cultivation at this point.
Yeah.
We learned that she basically orchestrated the whole Todium thing, which I'm still back on the whole why in the world was that ever a good idea train. But I see what she was trying to do. Yeah, I don't know. I'm very suspicious of cultivation. Very.
Do you think she's blundering, or do you think she's doing this on purpose?
I think that she thinks that she's in control. I think she thinks she's pulling all the strings. She is all happy. Haha, I tricked Odium. I was worried about him. He was going to get me just like he got Odium, or Honor, sorry. But haha, I found Taravangian. I figured out a way to defeat Rays, and now my man is now the vessel of Odium. Haha, I win. But we've seen inside Taravangian's mind. We know the dark side. We know what he's capable of, and I'm not sure cultivation realizes that. And so I think cultivation might purely be acting in her own interest and not the interest of Roshar as a whole, or wider than Roshar for the Cosmere as a whole, and that may come back to bite everyone.
I think it'll be an interesting dynamic if Taravangian still has dumb days and intelligent days, or I should say emotional days and non-emotional days. That'll be a very interesting dynamic holding Odium.
And think about it. If Taravangian's dumb day means he gets emotional and just kind of cries in the corner, what does that mean when you insert Odium?
Right.
It's emotional day. I kind of guess that starts to go down the path of like anger and hatred. Of he's just going to have like Kylo Ren style tantrum days, and he's going to just smash everything.
I was going to go the other way with it, where the smart Taravangian is the scary one when he's holding Odium, because when he's super smart, he orders the death of a children's choir because it's not efficient for his day, and you're like, excuse me.
I think in my mind, Odium is already that. Odium is already the I don't really care. I'm just about my passions. So I don't know. Yes, that's scary. Taravangian is scary. Odium's scary, but it's no different. It's if you turn Odium, who's willing to destroy worlds, into emotional wreck. I don't see that going well.
That's probably my biggest question going into book 5 is how will Todium work?
Right.
Yeah.
I'd honestly be curious if I think it would be super cool, by the way. And I'd be super curious if we got like a chapter of like Ray's backstory. Like the former vessel, saw a glimpse at his life before before he became the vessel of Odium, to maybe get some insight into maybe how Teravangian, as we know him, will interact with Odium.
Yeah.
I've thought about this a couple different ways, and I can't figure out quite how, because sometimes I'm like, oh, maybe on a super smart day, Teravangian can kind of like wrangle the power of Odium, if you will, like have a more heightened ability to manage the power than another normal person would be able to have. But then again, on the super dull days, like, is it just going to be like Odium times 10? Is it going to be like even more outraged, even more crazy Odium? Who knows? So I don't know. These are rules that I think Brandon is going to have to spell out for me and make it make sense later on. I from a storyline point, a plot point, I am really excited to see what happens with our contest of champions, with everything. One of my favorite moments from this whole book was Dalinar and Teravangian, and Dalinar telling Teravangian that he's going to be there and he's going to get to watch Dalinar prove him wrong and that he was going to beat Odium. What happens whenever he shows up and Teravangian is Odium? That's been like my biggest thought.
Yeah.
I don't have no idea. But I cannot wait to see that. That's got to be one of the most. Whenever I listen to the audiobook, whenever someone enters the scene or something happens that I like know is going to be good, I like stop to really focus. I stop whatever I'm doing to like really focus. That is going to be like I have to sit down and just listen or just read that, because like that is going to be one of the most hyped up conversations I can think of in the whole series.
Yeah, I agree. I do want to come back to the Dalinar Teravangian dynamic. I'll ask you a question here in a second, but I want to talk about the unanswered questions we had coming out of Oathbringer, because back when we did the Way of Kings wrap up, Eliot had this entire comical list of one-liner names that either were explained or were not explained by the end of Oathbringer. Let's revisit this list real quick and see where we're at with those. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and start going through it. Dawn Singers. Are you guys confident with your knowledge on Dawn Singers?
Not really. I mean, we kind of know what they were ish.
I would
no.
I would be the same. I'm like 30% confident I know what a Dawn Singer and what they are capable of is. Teravangian, we have this as answered. I would go as far to say that we should undo that, unanswered. And now it's unanswered. What the heck is Teravangian doing?
I think we know everything we can know about Teravangian right now. But we still have questions on how he will be, of course.
Ghostbloods. Have we answered the Ghostbloods question?
Yes, with the question mark about the leaders of the Ghostbloods are still mysterious, but I understand what the Ghostbloods are.
Agree.
Yeah, I would agree. Shallan's family we know about, nothing new there. Symbol heads, those are cryptics, we understand. Old magic.
All that I remember pertaining to this is, don't they use that to reference the Night Watcher?
Yes.
Or it's like in conjunction with the Night Watcher.
That's just the Night Watcher, although I think this is solved because we've learned now that some people go to the Night Watcher and they get stuff, old magic. But we know that some of our key characters did not see the Night Watcher, or they did, and they got passed off to Cultivation herself.
Right.
So characters like Teravangian and Lift and Dalinar did not get the old magic. They got some sort of gift from Cultivation herself.
Right. And characters who think they got like a boon and a curse don't
Yeah.
actually have those confines of the Night
Right.
Watcher. They have different rules that they may or may not know about.
Yep. So not only is it solved, I wouldn't even ask the same question as I did back then.
Right.
Yeah. That's how I felt with the Dawn Singers, honestly. I don't know that, like, I kind of know what they are, but I don't think that's even really a question in my mind anymore.
The Everstorm, we know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Odium,
Yes.
yes, understand.
I would say I know what that is.
Adonalcium. Are you guys confident with your ability to understand Adonalcium as a
I would,
concept?
I would say yes, given what as much as I guess I should know. Like, I knew Adonalsium was effectively like the capital G god of like everything was splintered.
Yes.
Like,
I
well, splintered is the shards that we have now.
I more or less spelled this out for you in 101.
Mm-hmm.
In Cosmere 101.
Yeah.
The origin.
I want to just pause on that one, and that I feel like I've learned enough to say maybe it's not as important as I thought,
Right.
but I wouldn't want to check it off as answer just because I'm still moderately intrigued. We had one interlude chapter, goodness, Words of Viridiance, I want to say, where there's this one character who's in like the far east land and is talking all about his religion that has to do with the origin. All that to say, I think there might be more to the origin than we realize. It doesn't seem to be a major part in our story so far.
Yes.
What is the origin referring to? Do we not know anything about it, or is it just a name drop, or do we kind of know what it's supposed to be?
So the origin is mostly named in the Way of Kings, and that is the point where the high storms come from. That or at least that's what the Voron religion would tell you, is all of the high storms come from the origin. And
Okay.
that's about it.
Because I didn't remember what that was referring to, but in my head, if I hear the origin, I was like, do we kind of know what that is now? Because I was thinking of the origin of like the Alethi being on Roshar. We know that's through Ishar and his
Mhm.
bondsmith abilities, likely with some like else calling. So
And the only part that I would bring up again on the origin is Brandon Sanderson has said that the high storm predates the Knights Radiant. So it does not have specifically to do with like a bondsmith honor, etc. Or it does have to do with honor. It doesn't have to do with a bondsmith, if that makes sense. Okay. Parshendi no Dalinar.
Solved.
We answered this a long time ago. Fabrials. Have we thoroughly answered Fabrials, Elliot?
As of end of Rhythm of War, yes. I'm sure there's more to be discovered, right? It's science. So there's more, I'm sure, ways you could make Fabrials. But yeah, my knowledge of Fabrials went from 20% to 80%.
The sun.
I agree. It's like technology.
The Sunmaker.
Is that the sword of somebody? Is somebody's sword?
It is Dalinar's ancestor who has Oathbringer at the time.
Yeah, who originally did. I think we know all we really need to know.
Yeah.
We learn a little bit that he was like the person to originally like conquer Alethkar or unite Alethkar. One of those two.
Yeah.
Unite via conquering.
Dalinar's wife.
Resolved.
Red Oathbringer, got it.
Yep, she's hot. Midnight Essence.
But mostly solved-ish. We
matter.
know a lot more about the unmade
Yeah.
than we used to.
Yeah.
So it seems like
Yes.
very unmade-ish power.
I think Midnight Essence might come back up in Stormlight 5. Rayship here kind of ran off at the beginning of Oathbringer and has not come back. Tef's Pass, understood. Moash's Pass, understood. Old Bloods.
That's like a one-liner reference to a random nobody back in like Way of Kings. Never been revisited that I've noticed.
Yeah. In my head, it doesn't matter.
Risen?
Yes, for everything that we can know. We
I've-
know she has a Dawn Shard, which is my big question.
Yes,
It's not Risen question mark, it's Dawn Shard question mark.
Risen goes from like yes, I understand everything that's happening with this character, to I know nothing about what this character can do within about 2 chapters. Amiens.
Feel like I got Amy in 101 in Dawn Shard, so
Yeah.
Yeah. I know
Curse.
what they are. I don't get them.
Curse of Kind.
No
is
idea.
that part of the answer we got in that, or is that unique to Axes?
I think Curse of Kind is tied to Amiens. I don't remember exactly how.
Okay. Axes has a weird way of talking, so I kind of wonder if that was just his way of referring to some of his Amian abilities.
I don't think we've seen Axes since like Words of Radiance.
Uh-uh.
Essences. The 10 essences and your surges.
Yes, much more so. I think, Trevor, you've probably just explained to us some of this.
The wiki knows it at least.
Yeah.
The Ars Arcanum in the back. Stormfather, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Scouring of Aemia. We got a 101 in Dawn Shard about that one. The 10 Fools.
This has been referenced once or twice since then. I feel like the answer I've come to in my head is it's just a way to reference the heralds in a negative context.
I don't think they are the heralds. I think it's a parable that doesn't really have anything to do with the heralds.
Maybe.
Yeah, I've also kind of thought of them as like the heralds, or maybe even, like, if you really want to speculate, maybe even people who became the Unmade, but like they were known as people and they were a bunch of losers, you know?
The Invisagers. Yeah.
More or less.
Urithiru. We thought we answered
Definitely.
this at the time. I think we've answered it more since then, but yes. Nohadon.
90%, I think.
I think it's lower than that. I think there's something.
You think there's more there?
I do. I think there's something fishy happening with Nohadon. I think he was either a bondsmith of the time, or even bigger theory, I think he might have been a Dawn Shard holder of the time. And the implications that can hold can get crazy. I think Nohadon is coming back up in Stormlight 5. We have not even had his name drop for a full book now. Yes, we have one.
I could agree with that.
Okay. Where was I? Oh, World Singers.
I'm in the boat of doesn't matter anymore.
Ooh,
These are like lore people, right?
I am in the other boat. I think World Singers matter more than we think, for reasons I can't talk about.
I was gonna say that we learned something at Dragonsteel, which anyway.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Red Eyes and White Eyes. I don't even remember where this comes up.
Red Eyes comes up in a couple different places, which is why I referenced it. Voidbringers is one of them.
Oh, does that just have to do with the thrill? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes, I think the Red Eyes, I think, was resolved as being an effect of the thrill.
Okay.
White Eyes, I think, might have just been a coincidence. White Eyes was referenced in like 3 different characters, called out specifically, all in a relatively short amount of time, and so I kind of got caught on it. I think it was just an example of light-eyed characters.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but yeah.
Amaram, he's been dead for a full book now. The Mistress.
That was the interlude mistress, right?
Yes.
And we know now that that's Shalash. She's with us. She's on our team.
That is Shalash. The Prime Catasix.
No idea who that is.
You said that last time as well. The oath, I explained it to you last time as well. It's the Prime who dies before Yanagon. So Yanagon gets given Prime. Zeth kills the Prime Catasix.
Okay.
Not very important. Dawn Cities. Capsule. Shout out to Capsule anytime I can.
We know more about what they are, and we know now a lot more about pure tones.
Yes.
which I think is going to play into that a lot more. I wouldn't call this fully solved yet.
I think Dawn Cities has something to do with the shattered planes and why they were shattered, which I think we might get a history lesson. I hope in Stormlight 5. May not be till Stormlight 6. But Hoyd? Question mark?
That one is never going to be answered by any book unless it's
True.
like the final book of the Cosmere.
Yeah, this is Mistborn Era 4, the final book type of answered question.
Yes, but I think we know as much as we can. We know what he is now. We know he was like offered to be a shard, or offered the powers of a shard, but declined it.
Yeah.
We know that makes him something entirely different. But yeah, if Hoyd is still mysterious, we don't know what all he knows. We don't know where he's been, and yeah, I don't think we ever will.
Ideals.
We're learning them.
I think this will be. I think this will be a question until Stormlight 10, where we get the 5th ideal of the Stone Wards or whatever the last one is. Death words. Oh, is this death rattles? We know what those are.
Yep.
Yeah, we know what that is.
Long shadow.
No idea.
There's a couple here: Long Shadow, Bright Collar, and Life Brother, that are names referencing we don't know what, or at least I don't know what. Not sure.
Okay. Dawn chant.
We've started translating it, or our characters have.
The original language of the singers before the humans showed up on Roshar. That one's pretty. Terra. We answered who Terra is. At the time, we had no idea who Terra was. Soul's March.
I think that's just a religious term for from Vorinism.
Okay. I don't know. I couldn't tell you where that was referenced. Dawn Shards. You guys read Dawn Shard and have no questions about Dawn Shards, right? Understand Dawn Shards completely?
Right. Yeah. We know that they exist, and we
Sure.
know Risen has one. We don't know what that means.
And
We
Zeth
don't
has
know what
another one,
Dawn
and
Shards
Dalinar has
do.
the other one.
Oh my.
You don't know that. Those are theories. I think it broke Paul there for a second.
Well, I've had the theory that Shallan has had one for a long time or something.
Which one?
But
What does Shallan have?
I've always had the theory that in her flashback we saw that there was a Dawn Shard at her.
Oh yeah, behind in the vault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been a theory. That's what I've assumed for a long time, but no idea.
All right. Fast forwarding through some of these. The Long Trail. What is the Long Trail?
A long
Might be
trail.
another Vorinism term. There's a few scenes sometimes we get with Ardents where they just like spout off some random terms, and I write them
Okay.
down because I don't know what they mean.
Larkins.
Yeah. Oh,
We fairly understand. Xyle. I don't know. Are we ever going to understand Xyle?
we know who he is, so I would say yeah.
Yeah. Invested. Yes, we understand that. The
Yeah.
Gift. Capital G. The Gift. I don't
I
even know
what that was referenced.
I don't know where this comes from. Shallan's mother, yes, ish. Wicked Thing of Eminence.
Shallan references that, I think. I don't even remember what it was.
Could be even referring to herself, knowing what we know about
Yeah.
Shallan. Lunu Akai. Is this just some reference that Rock makes that we don't know anything about?
I think so.
Probably.
Yep. The Ring? Who has a ring?
I don't even remember that at all. Where's
Talonel's
a radiance somewhere.
Talonel's blade. This is highlighted as answered in our outline. It's absolutely not. Where is Talonel's blade?
So we talked about this a while back when we thought we knew what was going on, and then we got a little confused. And then Trevor, I think you pointed out that there's 100% a swap that
Correct.
happens.
There is 100% a swap, and we have not had it referenced yet.
Because we were all like, "Oh yeah, well we've got another honor blade," but we don't.
We don't. It was swapped with a normal dead shard blade.
Yeah, right.
So somewhere there's a Stone Ward full surge honor blade out there that we have not kept track of. Moalak, Nergaul, the Thrill. I like the.
Those are all unmade.
Yeah, those are both on here, and those are the same thing. Graves has been dead for a while. Lopin, he swore his third ideal in Dawn Shard. The Sons of Honor. Do you guys feel confident on the Sons of Honor?
That's something I
Ish.
don't quite get. I couldn't tell you what it is right now, but I'm sure I've learned about it.
It's the organization that's trying to bring back the Voidbringers so that the Knights Radiant come back so they can Surge Bind.
Right, that's
Gavilar
what Gavilar was
and-
doing.
Yeah, Gavilar and Amaram.
All right. I'm just going to fast forward through some of these. Yasna's Past, we have not had pretty much
I was
anything
going to
about.
highlight that if you didn't. There's
Yasna's Past.
an offhand mention in Oathbringer that's like, oh, and the terrible things in Yasna's past. And then it moves on. I'm like,
Yeah.
hold on a second. What?
The Shin have most of the honor blades. We know that.
The Aether.
The Ethers.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is a Words of Brandon thing. I might cover this at a later time in the podcast, not yet. The Ethers is an interesting topic for another day. The Black Fisher, I don't know what that is.
The Black Fisher, the Spawning Mother, and the Faceless, I think all get thrown out at the same time.
Is this just Ray Shapir? All of them?
If not one unmade, multiple unmades references to them, I think.
The Stone of 10 Dawns. I don't know what that is.
That is still a huge question mark in my mind. I don't get it.
Ba Edo Mishram. We've had several quotes on Ba Edo Mishram. I have a feeling that is going to be part 1 of Stormlight 5. Shimawarish. What is that?
Unmade, I think. Again.
Okay. Windrunner's 4th Ideal. We answered that one.
Finally.
Mm-hmm.
Finally. Braze. Do you guys understand what Braze is?
Yes.
More or less.
Okay. Midius. Do you know who Midius is? I told you not too long ago.
I remember you telling me, and I don't remember what you said.
Hoyd.
Likewise.
Midius is what the heralds call Hoyd.
Oh.
That's right.
Bata Ilin is one of our heralds. Capital F Fortune. I think you guys understand as much as we understand about what capital F Fortune is. Raze is dead. And that is the end of our list. Elliot, do you want to add a couple things real quick of what we learned in this book and have yet to be answered?
I'll mention briefly that doing lists like this has almost become obsolete.
Yes.
We've reached the point where before it was me like writing down everything I didn't understand about the Cosmere and just noting it. Now I've reached the point where either one of two things has happened. I either have enough Cosmere knowledge to kind of understand a lot of that. I didn't have a lot of new questions like this coming out of Rhythm of War. We answered a lot instead of added more. Or two, I've kind of gotten a feel for what's important and what's not.
Yeah.
I can kind of know now, like, oh, that's a name that's going to be important, or oh, that's an unanswered question that we should remember. Or sometimes it's just like, okay, that's just clearly another sort of ethnic name for this herald, or that's another way to talk about Voidbringers, or stuff like that. That I've started to get enough kind of Cosmere experience under my belt that I don't have when I look back on our fairly silly questions that I did on day 1 of Way of Kings. That said, I do have a couple of questions to add in. There's way back in the prologue, there's an ardent named Rusher Kreis or something like that.
Yep.
Who never got explained. So question mark there. Another big one, as I was thinking back on this book, we got told, or at least heavily hinted, that there would be 9 different varieties of fused. Doing a little bit of Coppermine research, because I can do that now that I'm not going to spoiler myself. I've found out that we've seen, I think, 7 of them so far, which leaves 2 unexplained. Although L, which is another question mark I have, could maybe be one of them. So like 1.5 unexplained varieties of fused. I have Axindweth, our rather intriguing world hopper. which is a term I've learned recently.
Thank you, Dragons, too.
Thydakar, yes. Thydakar / Lord of Scars. Got a reference to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end of the book, Shalon pulls a spren out of her little communication box with the ghost bloods and calls it a Sion, a very rare, impossible to find breed of spren. And doesn't tell us anymore.
Well, I will confess to you, you're supposed to know what that is already. It's from Elantris. We'll talk about Elantris later.
Good to know.
That's cool. I think my biggest question, which Elliot mentioned, is who L is.
Who then is L?
Yeah. That's all I have to say. I don't know who L is. I don't quite get it.
L will come into some of our Stormlight 5 predictions, which we'll go into now. All right. Quick thumbs up or thumbs down if you subscribe to each other's theories. So I'll go ahead and start, and if you are in support, then if you're both in support, then we won't really go into it that much. If you guys are not, then we can discuss a little bit. How's that sound?
Works.
I think by no design of Dalinar, I think Dalinar has full intention of being his own champion. I think there will be something that withholds Dalinar from being his own champion, and Kaladin, maybe Zeth, but I think Kaladin will be Honor's champion in the contest of champions.
My thumb is waffling because I'm fully on board with the whole contest of champions is not going to go down how we think it will. I am not on board with it could be Kaladin. Okay. I think that would do immense damage to the character arc we just got in Rhythm of War.
Okay. What about Zeth?
Potentially. I think Zeth is going to have his own brand new character arc. Maybe the contest could fit into that. I don't know.
Paul, do you think Dalinar's going to be his own champion and it's pretty cut and dry?
I think Dalinar's going to be his own champion, but if it's not him, then it might be someone we're not entirely expecting.
Adolin?
I could honestly see it being Renarin.
Okay.
I could see it being like a stepping forward moment of Renarin.
It's just Nightblood. You just set the sword in the arena. It's just Nightblood.
It would do great. It would probably win.
Go get him. Unsheath Nightblood. Unsheath him. Put him in this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, second one. Adolin, and by extension, Maya, is going to die.
Don't even say such things.
It's okay to make that prediction. I just don't think that's what's going to happen.
Okay. Dalinar is not going to become a fused, even if he loses. He will die. If he loses the contest, he will turn to Navani. And I think this thought comes from someone in Dragonsteel. Shout out to them. If he loses the contest of champions, and he is doomed to become a fused under Taravangian, he turns to Navani and says, "Stab me with some anti-Stormlight. I would rather die than be a fused under Odium." I think Dalinar will die in Stormlight 5.
Of all our characters, I think Dalinar is the most likely to die because I think that would be the most impactful on the rest of our characters. That could be a really key plot point in the rest of their arcs. Whereas I feel like if we lost, I feel like others would be more emotional, but maybe a little bit less impactful on our grand storyline.
Right.
This fully depends on the pacing of the story for me. I think if our contest of champions is kind of quick out of the gate, we have time for Dalinar to be under Odium. And there's to be like things that happen there and that to be part of the story. If it's like ending of the book, then I could believe this way more. I could believe Dalinar looking to like be killed by Navani, like
or Kaladin or somebody.
Yeah, somebody.
Okay.
With Navani's discovery of the anti-Stormlight stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Would that affect High Storms if we killed the Stormfather with anti-Storm? That's a crazy thought. my last one, and I think this is like maybe not epilogue, but part 5 of Stormlight 5. I think Shallan goes world hopping. I think she leaves Roshar for the bet. I think she survives. We'll start there. She does not stay on Roshar for for the back 5, and she hops into Warbreaker 2, hops into Mistborn Era 3. You know, some she leaves to go somewhere, and she is not on Roshar at the end of the book. Somehow she takes Pattern and Testament with her. And kind of tacked on here, I think at the end of Stormlight 4, Shallan is pregnant. I think Shallan does not know it yet, but I think Shallan is pregnant.
I could get on board. Does Shallan speak another oath in book 5?
What is she on? Is she on 3?
It's so complicated. I have no idea what Shallan is at.
It's a great...
I honestly, genuinely, I stopped thinking about it.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's not even worth trying to figure out anymore, I think, with her oaths.
Was her accepting Testament back in an oath?
That's my question.
I don't know.
It seems like that should have been her
4th? Yeah.
But we didn't get like these words are accepted da-da-da-da-da
But
moment.
also we had the tease of, did she have her shard plate in the end of Oathbringer because she was actually Radiant, not Shallan in the fight? Shallan is so confusing, man.
That's why I asked next ideal and not a specific one.
That's ideal. 5th ideals, just as a concept, are going to be very strange. If we get them Stormlight 5 or the back half or whatever, approaching your 5th ideal is very odd.
What if her next ideal is I killed myself and she's been a cognitive shadow this whole time?
And rebound herself to herself?
Yep. Or
to multiple other people.
Or
I don't know.
Herself to someone else. Maybe she's not who we think she is.
Have I ever thought of her in the right way? Maybe in the first 2 books. Yeah.
I wrote this down once.
Go off world. In our story, in this, I could see like a back half kind of thing, maybe.
I wrote this down a while ago, and I haven't brought myself to fully cross it out yet. And what I wrote down was, is Shallan a herald? And again, back to the whole, could her next truth be, I was a herald, I killed myself, and what we think of as Shallan is actually the vessel of a herald or some kind of a bound, vessel's the wrong word because that's used for shards, but she's the body that has had the soul of a herald cognitive shadow attached to it. Refute me if you can. If you
no. No, as in I don't think that's possible. I think our other heralds would have known or something was up.
You would think.
My brain hurts talking about Shallan, I will be honest.
I literally don't know that she's worth it. I don't know. Like, I feel like you could talk a million different things and none of them are that fruitful with Shallan.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
The amount of possibilities with Shallan is insane.
What if just Radiant is a herald, but Shallan is not? Like, I don't know. There's so much ridiculous stuff.
What if Formless was around since she was a kid and Formless died, but Shallan, whatever.
Yeah.
But I do think Shallan is pregnant. I think Radiant knows, and Shallan does not.
I'll buy it.
All right. Someone else, go.
My biggest prediction / anticipation for book 5 is Moash. We left Moash in an interesting place at the end of this book. He has done terrible things. Navani blasted him. He felt his pain and was not repentant or regretful of anything. and now he's blind.
He is blind.
He's also, I think, a good candidate for Odium's champion. I think it's also, we may not need to get into all this because I think we've hashed it out in pretty good detail a couple of episodes ago. I think we are going to be faced with a redemption of Moash dilemma. There was Dragonsteel was so fun actually to see the massive divide between some of the fans out there of the people that are very much on the Moash did no wrong boat and the people who are very much on the F Moash boat. And so I think Brandon's obviously well aware of this. I think Brandon is going to use that to really make us examine our own beliefs as a reader. He is the one character I think that is so divisive and so emotionally triggering, I think, that if we are faced with can you accept, you characters and you reader, can you accept a redemption of Moash? That is a moment, I think, that could be incredibly big in Stormlight 5.
I agree. This is my favorite one. Big thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one, and honestly, I never even considered that Moash could be genuinely repentant until you brought up that Dalinar versus Moash, everybody is egging Dalinar on to just finish him, and he cannot do it. I subscribe to that one.
Moving on, Contest of Champions. We don't have time for me to read a quote, but as I was going back through, I actually found there's a moment where Renarin shares a vision of what we think is the Contest of Champions.
Yep.
The description goes something like this. I don't have it in front of me, so I'm going to try and go by memory. Dalinar is in full white shard plate with a black arrow in him, and he's fighting, but he's not fighting the opponent. That's how Renarin describes it.
He has his back to Odium. Odium is there, and he has his back
he's
to
facing
Odium.
the wrong way.
Yes.
And he's fighting, but he's not fighting Odium. And Renarin and Dalinar kind of, I think, misinterpreted a little bit. They say, oh, well, this means you're going to have a lot of distractions along the way. I wonder if it's more literal. I wonder if white shard plate could be ideal for Dalinar with his Spren plate. I think the fighting himself could be that moment where he's in the Contest of Champions, and for whatever reason, it's a repentant Moash, it's someone innocent, it's Gavinor, it's a resurrected Gavilar, whatever it is, Dalinar is at war with himself because he can't bring himself to kill whoever it is. I think Renarin may have foreseen it.
I like it. I definitely like that one.
Something that I'm thinking of, which I want to tack this on here and not jump too far. Because we're told that is the Contest of Champions, I think that Renarin is seeing. I'm assuming it explicitly states that. But we do know now that the terms have been set that if Dalinar loses this, he is Odium's, effectively, to go to the Cosmere. And so that could have been a vision of Dalinar being under Odium. Like not in the Contest of Champions way, but after a Contest of Champions.
Potentially. I guess it's very possible. A couple of other predictions for Stormlight 5. I think we're going to see more Heralds die. We've seen one like fully die. I think we're going to see, and I think I made this prediction a long time ago, that we would see a new type of Oath Pact reforged. I'm holding to that. I think that Dalinar is going to try and reforge the Oath Pact. I think they're going to hit some kind of a snag and have to figure out a different way to do it. It's not going to be the exact same way it was done before, but I think some of our characters will have to ascend to basically heralds and form a new Oath Pact of some kind. Not quite sure how that works yet, but sticking with it. This one might be big or maybe not. I don't think Odium will be defeated in Stormlight 5. In fact, I think he may not even necessarily be the primary big baddie.
Okay. Does that mean, so when you say Odium is not defeated, does that mean he leaves, or does that mean he stays and is here for the back half?
I think it's possible that he either escapes Roshar or they somehow, lock him down to Roshar, but he's still around. He's still going to be nasty. Whatever goes down with the contest champions, Odium is not going away after 5. I think L will be the primary villain for book 5.
Okay.
My theory. And then my last one that I kind of mentioned already, I think this is probably my biggest one. Ba-Edo Mishram is going to be the key, the center point for most of our plot in book 5. We've gotten lots of hints, everything from Parshman to the sibling to like Spren in general, that Ba-Edo Mishram is the key to a lot more than we think. I think Mishram will be freed, and I think it's going to be some sort of a Roshar becomes awakened in a way that it hasn't been in a long time.
So remember us talking about we need to turn the tower back on?
Uh-huh.
I think it's going to be similar. Ba-Edo Mishram is the Spren of the Spren, if you want to think of it that way, and we're turning the Spren back on, or we're turning Roshar back on. I don't know quite what that means, but I think it's going to be something on that scale of the Spren have returned sentience or something.
Yep, I agree. Or I think we may learn a bit of what it means to be unmade, and maybe we see some kind of a return from unmade to made.
Unmade?
Like maybe, we unmade Mishram. Somehow we figure out how to return Mishram back to what they were originally supposed to be before they were unmade.
Right. I'm tracking.
And Roshar is healed, the day is saved. They all ride off into the sunset.
I like all of those. Paul?
Yeah. All right. I'm going to run through these. My first theory, which is kind of a two-parter. I don't have the second half on here. I think Hoyd's memory is not completely wiped.
Okay.
I think there is a trick up his sleeve. Something, either he was supposed to, like, he intentionally lost him or something like that. A twist on this theory, which I thought about while we were at Dragonsteel, is we've seen how Odium was able to like take a new vessel as a shard, right? Hoyd is so big and mysterious and I guess invested that I'm going to assume if he dies, I'm just going to make an assumption. I'm going to make the assumption that if Hoyd dies, his wit, if you will, can have a new vessel. I think there is a possibility. If Hoyd's memory is wiped, I think he will die in this book, and Yasna will be the new wit.
Okay.
If there's anyone we've seen the fondness he has for Yasna, and not just like a physical fondness, like a she can hang with me kind of thing. And so, in the same way that we see Teravangian fill Odium's like nature, I think that could be the case, which would be really crazy. I don't know if I believe that would happen, but hypothetically, if Wit dies, I think that's what would happen. I think Kaladin is going to lay down his life in Book 5. Not necessarily like be killed, but I think he's going to lay down his life to protect.
Okay.
I think Dalinar is going to lose the Contest of Champions. I don't know if I have a super specific on what that means. I think it is likely to be someone he can't fight is going to be who he's up against, which he just will choose not to kill them.
I feel like so much revolves around what happens to Dalinar. Is he his own champion? Does he win? Does he lose? Does something weird happen where it goes a different direction? Does he become a servant of Odium? Does he die? There's a lot of possibilities.
Does he become a servant of Odium and therefore ask his wife to kill him? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of craziness there. That is like the biggest question that will like, if we find out any more details regarding that, that shifts how we think about everything for book 5. So, like with that, it's not a prediction, but we know that there will be some dialogue. I'm gonna say we know that there'll be some dialogue between Dalinar and Taravangian at this contest, and that is what I'm most excited for in book 5.
Do you think that Taravangian's Odium reveal happens at the contest, or does that happen a couple days previous? Does he show up to the contest and it's like, oh, you're Taravangian? That's crazy.
I think Dalinar will know that Taravangian has died as far as he knows. I don't think he will know until the Contest of Champions.
Okay.
I think we're going to learn about Dawn Shards in the same way that I predicted. I'm going to use my leverage here. I predicted that we would learn about the Dark Sphere in book 4. I think we will learn about Dawn Shards in book 5. If
Okay.
not, then it has to be an incredibly major piece in the back half of Stormlight. Like major. It can't be put where it's been put, I think, and not be a thing. It is our new Dark Sphere.
I would have bet all my spheres that Dawn Shard was going to come up in Rhythm of War.
Yeah.
We read that was the kind of side quest in between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, and I feel like hardly anything that we learned in Dawn Shard was actually directly relevant to Rhythm of War.
I agree.
So
there was really nothing
to justify that book existing. There's gotta be something in book 5. Gotta be. Otherwise, that book is completely out of place.
I agree.
Just real quick on Dawn Shards. I think we've actually seen 3 on camera, and they are these. I think Nightblood is a Dawn Shard, and has just not been named such, and he is the Dawn Shard to destroy. Because each Dawn Shard has like a command, capital C command, Warbreaker, with them. The one that Risten picks up is Change. It commands her to change. And I think the third one that we've seen, Dalinar has it, and he doesn't know he has it. And it is Unite, capital U, Unite, which throws my Unity as the 4th shard on Roshar theory out the window. But it's Mercy, so it's fine. Capital U, Unite, and I think the physical, housing of the Dawn Shard was Dalinar's copy of the Way of Kings. And Dalinar absorbed Unity when Odium destroyed the book at the end of Oathbringer. Because Dalinar's ranting about a light at the end of Oathbringer. While he's writing Oathbringer, he's like, can you close the drapes? That's distracting me from the other light. And anyway, his in-world copy of the Way of Kings had the Dawn Shard of Unity in it.
That's a pretty cool prediction. I like that.
I like it a lot. I'm still stuck on the what is a Dawn Shard though. I need to go back and reread the book Dawn Shard based on, and apply my knowledge I've gained from Rhythm of War to it to see if I could learn more. But I follow all that you're saying, but still can't answer the question in my head of what a Dawn Shard even is.
Go look in the wiki.
My last one is more minor. I think we're going to see some of our favorite characters rub off on each other. I think we're going to see Kaladin learn from Zeth some in like the ways of reverence, in like quote doing things the right way and the most upright, I guess, making the right choice kind of thing. And I think Zeth is also going to learn from Kaladin about like making decisions and like standing for the good choice and how to protect like from a reasonable nature, not like a following order kind of thing.
What if Zeth is the boost Kaladin needs to get to his fifth ideal? And his fifth ideal is, I'm going to drop this, and I can't really talk about why, but I think his fifth ideal might be, I will protect what is right.
Okay.
And Zeth is going to be the key to getting him there.
Okay. Interesting. I will brew on that for a while.
Mm-hmm. Until book 5 comes out, we'll brew on
Right.
it.
All right. Anything else for our Rhythm of War wrap up, gentlemen?
Cool book.
You have read all of published Stormlight. Period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. Thoughts? Quick thoughts before we close.
This is a cool feeling. I feel like we've climbed a mountain, and we've hit like the false peak right before the actual peak, and that there's still a climb to go to get to the top of book 5. But like, I'm looking back and seeing just how far we've come, and it's a pretty cool feeling to see that we've read close to, in my short mass market paperbacks, close to 5,000 pages. 5,000 pages. Like 1.5 million words.
Yep.
Or something like that.
I was about to pull out that number. Over 1.5 million words. Yep.
Crazy. And it's been a fantastic journey. I've enjoyed every second.
Do you want to follow that, Paul?
Yeah, no, it's been great. I will confess, the other day I started like just poking around in the very beginning of The Way of Kings, and it feels so different to look at it now.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to kind of poke around some. I probably won't start on a formal reread for a little while, but I was amazed with how it was able to captivate me from the beginning. I just read the prelude and the prologue again, or actually no, the prelude and the beginning of chapter 1. It's really cool, especially reading and knowing who our heralds are is really captivating now. So, cool story, Brandon.
All right. We may or may not be reconvening next week. I haven't decided yet. But thank you for joining me, Paul and Eliot. The original goal of the podcast has been fulfilled, and we will keep going later next year and a couple little tidbits before the end of the year. So thanks for joining me, Paul and Eliot.
Journey before destination.
Life before death. Very fitting.
The order.